everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Mohammed Qasim, and one of the co-founders of Chip Foundry, the company. And today, I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview, and then we're going to go through the challenge and the process. So the first thing I wanted to share, I'm going to share the screen now. And for those of you that don't know about Chip Foundry, so Chip Foundry is provides a platform with very accessible features and cost for SoC development in 130 nanometer. And the platform starts with templates that already pre-exist. And you probably seen the names around in an open source world. The Caravelle is the most popular one, and that's a RISC-V microcontroller subsystem. And that RISC-V microcontroller subsystem has a hole in it that typically the designer would fill and focus on it. So the project will utilize one of these templates and to be available to you. But the idea here is that you use a template to start from, and then Chip Foundry supports and provides the tools and the support to actually make it a finished chip. And then the output of that comes in for a typical Chip Foundry project. It comes with 100 units and the development board that is specifically done with that size. Even you can see a large footprint and has all the IOs, because simply it's designed for characterization and testing versus having a board that is tiny for a specific application. So in general, and that's the platform from Chip Foundry. Now, one of the things that we should talk about here is that everything here is open source. That's a very important piece. So like, for example, these platforms are open source. And for those of you that are familiar with the entire open source movement for chip design, there are probably thousands of designs that exist on the open source technologies between the three foundries that are among the three foundries, the SkyWater, GlobalFoundries, and IHP. Now, the purpose of the challenge is actually it's something that I'm going to start. So I'm going to just switch to the challenge. So this is not the reason. This is actually a product design contest and versus a chip design only. And the reason we're doing this is very simple. There's a lot of designs. There are a lot of designs that exist in the open source space that are at the chip level, and they stop there. And very rarely that someone developed something that took it to the next level and created an actual product. And when I say product, means it could be even the board, just without even the casing, but it's something that is the more complete it is, the better. And the reason we're doing this is that we wanted to demonstrate that open source silicon can actually be used for solving real problems, and it can be. Because actually Chip Foundry already has commercial customers, but we wanted to make more people see this and more people feel it and actually do it and contribute to it. So I'll start with this is the kind of a visual of the templates. As I mentioned, Caravelle is going to be one of them. And then there is an open source tool set. It's called OpenLane that's going to be provided. And then we're going to fabricate this in Sky130 in fabrication. Now, I want to talk a little bit about open source, just the historical context for Linux. Yeah. So, and I would like to use that because it's in Linux now is one of the very widely adopted by commercial, by the industry, as well as the community of developers. And there is a specific characteristic around this, is that there's actually a complete loop for product development. And the fact that the open source stack is being used and is actually being used on the right-hand side with a lot of widely deployed and adopted generates interest from the commercial industry that puts money to actually make it even, the flywheel make the flywheel work. So that's what happened high level in the software. Now, our current state in the open source silicon, we have open, 3 years ago there were the open source process technologies, the Sky 130, and then followed by 180 from GF and then IHP. But we remain in the open source piece, not because Chip Foundry has commercial customers that are not open sourcing their designs, but now for the open source designs, it remains demonstration vehicles, but it's not going to a complete usable product. And if we look back onto this slide, if we think of Linux, again, think of Linux as an example here, we want it to be used in commercial servers. So if you go to here, we need to actually get the open source chips to be used in commercial hardware applications. And when I say commercial, I mean, it starts with the real application. Number one is that when you create a product, it raises the context, and it actually forces the thought process around the chip in a different way. So one of the reasons we're doing this is that you have to think about the whole system, not just the chip. So you think about the system with the battery life, and you can actually have if it's not enough to have a low power chip, that you need to actually think about the whole system, because other blocks or other functions on the board that will consume the battery will make things just high power versus the chip is low power, so it doesn't matter. So thinking holistically at the product helps, gives you a different context on how to position the chip and what the value of the chip is. The second one is first is getting a product. You need to actually, the quality and of the outcome and the end result is going to be elevated. Now, when people see in the market, and actually, I will unshare for a second and mention this. So I always tell people, so this is the AirPods from Apple. So imagine a day and you have this AirPod that says, okay, open source inside. And when Apple puts the licenses of the list of licenses of what was used, it says the following infrastructure was used from silicon, not just the software. Typically, they do this for the software. So imagine this is it. We should do that, and we can do that. This is absolutely the direction we should go. You find many products, including large companies, they're adopting and using the silicon that was developed in the open source space. Why? Because it's high quality and it's trusted. So go back to sharing the screen. So when you raise the quality and demonstrate it in different ways, and we can talk about that, you can have trust. People also start saying, I can be a big company. So one of the issues here is that large companies will say, okay, how would I know the source of the open source? Whether it's is it high quality or not? Is it tested or not? So there is a risk of adopting open source in the industry, in the world. So open source silicon. So more so than as a software, again, because it's still in its infancy, even with all the things that have been happening in the last 3 years. Now, once you trust it, you start having adoption. People, will use it reliably. And then the most important piece here is to actually look at companies that are benefiting from this. Like back in the day, again, IBM was that case. Linux now became, the investment in Linux around Linux is so far below and much more valuable than the actual investment that happened, just because of the people that were involved in the community were enriching it with the right features, and the type of engagement is not just a bunch of people working under a specific umbrella with a specific focus in a company. There's a huge difference when things are developed by the community. So we need to raise the trust, and then once you have that, you would have a flywheel. That flywheel if you imagine companies are using the open source designs that we have, and then now these companies are actually they will realize the benefit because it actually has products that serves real problems or solves their problems. And that loop will say, okay, I'd like to invest. One of the things that if you think until today, we're going to keep saying the manufacturing of silicon is still something that is hard to find funding for. The only solution for this is to create a revenue around it. And again, so even though the contest is, we're talking about open source, you have to actually say these things because in order to make the open source silicon succeed and be perpetually developed by the community needs support from the right places, manufacturing, etc., technical contributions. So we want to see the world in a way where the industry is adopting it and the community is doing the work for open source, but it's high enough to the level that the industry can use it and produce. When I say industry, I mean solving real problems. I didn't mean necessarily the AirPod. I said the AirPods, but if you think about it, every place on this planet, there is a problem to be solved with electronics. And whether it's in agriculture, in medicine, it's in industrial robotics, whatever it is. So I'll go back to the page here, but specifically I'm going to speak about the challenge. So Chip Foundry chose to say, okay, how about what are we contributing in this claim that we're making? So our contribution is we're going to encourage the community and say, okay, we're going to remove the barrier of hardware cost, and with the objective of adding more library components in the open source with demonstrating the value in a real application. By the way, it's actually very doable, and it is actually doable. The thing is, part of the challenge is to create the engagement from the people to actually do it and believe in it themselves, not just us. So we need the idea is to develop a reference design. You can choose the application, and you can choose to group with anybody you want to be with, a team or not. And you don't have to, you can choose your own problem as long as the key part would be is to have a solution for completing, including the sensors, including the battery or not, and something that actually can be used to show, here's how I solved the following problem. It could be a music device. It could be glass break sensing. It could be what you come up with it, and it's an open platform in terms of what it is, because that's what we don't want to control what it is, just with giving guidance. And as you develop it, anything related to the hardware in terms of that device, for the winners, Chip Foundry will support that. And it is obvious that it's the type of people we're saying here, generally speaking, as an encouragement for people who can be engaged. But the reality is, we've seen in the community, anyone who's passionate and actually wants to even do it for learning, they're welcome. It's a good thing. There's no such thing called I'm engaged to, even if I don't win, the designs are open source. So this is a key value, is that if the designs are open source, other people can learn from it and reproduce them. This is one of the big criteria for the design, for the challenge, is to have the design be available for the community to learn from it and reproduce it, modify it. And then the winners will have the opportunity also to present their own designs and talk about them, and potentially monetize them as well, in the future. So if you go to the Chip Foundry website directly, you're going to find it right in front and center here, join the challenge link, and you're going to get in. You're going to find the page that I'm going through here. Generally speaking, you need to create a project, and that just for the sake, as a part of process, you would need to submit the idea or the intention of what you're trying to do in a proposal, and before March 25th, and then those who will be selected in the first round as candidates, they would proceed to compete for the second round, which is the final round. Again, I don't want to this. We tend to make these competitions to get the engagement. It's not necessarily about the winning. So if we end up with more designs, I'm just going to say this: if we end up with more designs that make sense, we may just say we sponsor them in a different or find a sponsor for it. But in general, I don't want the concept of who's winning to prevent other people who are to think this way and actually contribute, because the intention from Chip Foundry is to make that happen several times, and hopefully we're going to run these challenges regularly. And there's some guidance. Again, you have one of the key components here is that in order for the design to be open source, you need to be using an open source flow. So even if you have other tools and other commercial or proprietary systems to develop your own design, you must use the open source flow, open lane. The reason, because the terms and conditions for this allows us to actually make it open source, allows you to make it open source without any restrictions. So this is one of the things. And then you can use one of the things that people would ask about is that how about using AI? Well, all the power to you, because this is a part of their productivity engines that exist right now. Just consider that this is going to be a part of the sharing with the community, that I used AI, the prompts that I used, and the responses is going to be a part of the process of what's being delivered as a part of the project. Again, why? Because use of AI or LLMs rather, is very wide range of things. I mean, just asking something versus a complete agentic system. So whatever it is that's the process was used to generate the design, it's something, assume it's a part of the design process, and that needs to be shared with other people. So, and we'll leave that up to you, because eventually, just be aware that anything you do is going to be benefiting the community with your credit. For those who choose to engage in the challenge. The judgment criteria, again, very simple. There is a technical part of it, okay, and solving a real problem. Maybe the ones that actually have a potential market need that could fit into a market, that would actually be even better. So maybe some of these things is actually say in part of the proposal is like, why is it relevant? But the verification, as I mentioned, the quality of the designs is very important. So having showing the verification coverage and the level of robustness that this design has been verified with is very important. And then none of these things happen without a good documentation. So this, as I mentioned, this is in support for the reproducibility of the design, so other people can use it. And then the technique, looking at the cost, if you look at it as a product, generally products have to be encapsulated or guided within a realistic cost reality, in terms of if you're selling a product, if it's a watch that is $1 million, not gonna it's not, that's a low on that score, for example. I think just being aware of if you solve the same exact problem better with a lower cost system, that actually would be great if it's everything else is the same. And obviously that's the judges for the competition. I'm going to speak the least about myself, because I'm passionate about open source chips and also open source products. Now we'll be joined by Josh Lifton, the co-founder and president of the Crowd Supply. And for those who don't know, Crowd Supply is an amazing crowdfunding platform for open source hardware. So, and he's, part of the process is that he's looking at things in the open source hardware full scale eye. And then we're also joined by our David Topman, who actually was part of the Apple hardware team around the iPods back in the day, and he's the chairman of Cirrus Logic at this point. So if you notice here, there's a minority of chips, that's me, and then the two other judges are from a product level, which means it's also important to have how we present the context of the submission in the product world. Timeline, I think it was mentioned roughly. I mean, so the proposal submission is 25th of March. So we have about exactly 3 weeks, and then the final submission ready for type out April 30th. We will probably have maybe in the middle. I think we're going to have a support channel. I think it's there. Yeah, Discord channel, as well as we could have some office hours later to be maybe for those who are the going into a second round. We'll try to do as much as we can to help you get to the finished design. So the prize, it's really the most important thing is that we want the community to take credit for the work they've done. We want more of that success. If you look at the success of the vision of the open source silicon, we need to showcase people as well as outcome. That here's the people that have done that work. So there is of course, other than the silicon and the fabrication, this is one aspect of that. You're going to get your design fabricated and the hardware completed, but having a visibility and recognition that these designs can be utilized in real applications and other people can use them. Now, as we said, we're going to be supporting the hardware development, and potentially, if you finished a whole product, getting the mechanical design included as well. So just go to the Chip Foundry website. You're going to find the link to the challenge right there, and then I'm going to pause here to answer any questions and for the
yeah, awesome. Thanks,
thank
Mohammed. That was really great. So just the note on the page that Mohammed was showing, the very bottom, there's a list of resources there, but a couple of them, obviously the Caravelle template, but you'll also find like the second one on the list is the development board. So this has all the design files. They're open source, all that's done in open source using KiCad. So you'll find the design files there under the hardware directory. And you'll also find kind of firmware files there, obviously, if you've done any silicon validation or testing with Chip Ignite when you've gotten the back, all the example firmware is there as well. So you can reference that as a starting point or use that however you'd like, potentially in your submission. So maybe just with that, kind of switching back to some questions. So first question, can verification be performed using commercial tools?
The answer is no. You can, of course, but again, it will not be. It will prevent the design from being open source. That's simple.
The issue is license terms associated with those tools, right?
Yeah.
They can.
And then out of respect for any commercial or proprietary systems, it's important to honor these license agreements, and you will need to, and it needs to use open source tools. If you use proprietary tools, it will not make it to will not get to the right rank. Is that anything open source is it's going to be without a question, ranked higher.
All right, great. So next question. Thank you for another awesome hackathon. Full stack project requires a lot of time to build and specifically or especially to verify. Will 2 months be enough? So
yeah. So this is something. The answer is yes. To be honest with you, and the reason, we've seen enough in the last few years and how people choose to optimize the time, maybe collaborate, but there are different ways of people actually gathering together to do this. And we found that the outcome can be achieved in 2 months. But if you say maybe one person is working, a quarter of the time, maybe that's the time division itself is hard. But is the outcome possible, physically possible in 2 months? The answer is absolutely yes. And then now part of the creativity in this is to team up and find reuse as much as you can, so that you accelerate the work.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd offer on top of that too is just is to encourage you, don't let the bar. So obviously we'd love to see submissions that are like kind of ready for production, right? But don't let the bar of like the completeness be the factor from keeping you from submitting. Like, I think even if you're directionally we want to move the bar towards full product, but we're also interested in, maybe what you can get completed or submitted as a POC or an initial step or maybe a portion of the functionality you want of the full product. I mean, all those things are I think I would encourage you to submit them. And I think those all provide value in terms of what we're trying to get to in the end. All right, so let's maybe move on to the next question.
So the next question is related to the analog mixed signal design.
Yeah.
So actually, if you think about it, the reality is, in order to solve a real world problem, you're going to end up with sensing, and you're going to have to be either on chip or off chip using some sort of analog interface. And if it's not off chip, you're going to have it on the board, and so that's the start. Now, you could use a different template other than or some of that. You could try to use other templates and actually design an analog component. Again, this is where the time matters. So I'll follow back on the previous question. If you have existing blocks that you want to integrate, you can actually do it that way. If you're building blocks like data converters from scratch, that becomes a little bit of a challenge in terms of finishing it all the way. So for the analog mixed signal, I would encourage, if you have existing solutions that can actually be used directly, that's great. If you don't, then go on the board. So apply your analog mixed signal creativity on the board.
Right. So first round submissions, got a little bit of clarification on that. To submit a proposal, so verification or all flow or the entire design flow. So for the first submission, it's a README file with a proposal of what you intend to build, right?
Yeah.
It's not that you don't have completed the design specifically at that point. There's no review or what you've completed from a design perspective or verification of that. Okay, next one. Individual or team? I think you've answered that already, Mohammed.
I think we answered that. Absolutely. Teaming is encouraged.
Yep. Can we work on RISC-V SoC or use open source IPs?
And the answer is yes. The answer is absolutely yes.
Yep, absolutely. Is there a max team size?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Where can we find Caravel block scheme? Is there an integration example? And I mean, is there hardware in the user domain memory mapped in the Caravel memory space? If so, where can we find info on this stuff? Okay.
There are examples of how to use Caravel and finish the chip. And Marwan, you can comment.
Yeah, so there's Caravel user project that has already an example inside it. That's a counter example. all our templates have examples inside them. We do have a datasheet and a TRM in the Carevel repo. You can use those in order to understand the memory map and the register map, I guess.
Yeah, let me just share that real quickly. So, so if you go in, I'm in the Carevel repo, right here, Chip Foundry Carevel. And if you go into the docs directory, so this is Carevel repo, there's a docs directory, and in the docs directory, you'll see two sheets in here. One is a Carevel data sheet that has the details, and it includes a block diagram, I believe, in here, right there, for Carevel. And you'll find, I believe, memory map in here as well. Anyway, there's a lot, just you have to kind of browse through all the pages, but you'll find a lot of detail regarding that. And then there's also this document, the register TRM is provides kind of all the programming, register definitions for Carevel. So you can kind of understand kind of the firmware programming development and behavior of each of the functions in Carevel. So you can find a lot of information here as well. All right.
I recommend, Jeff, if we add that link to the resources link.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, and then just FYI, the link for YouTube, I think it needs a little, it's broken.
Oh, it's broken? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question, how old can the project be for submission? Again, that doesn't matter. Reuse as much as you can. Reusing open source components is actually encouraged. Okay, and using AI is also encouraged. So as long as we share the prompts. Yeah. So if you have the design already and you're readapting it, as long as it meets the criteria for the design, the challenge in terms of completeness, then absolutely go for it. When will you be notified of the eventual sponsorship? So, Jeff.
Yeah, it's on the so it's right on the back of the. Let me just see what we actually say on the website to confirm that. But we have a finals contest submission on April 30th. We're going to be announcing it within a week after the final submission. So, and then the tape out submission deadline is the 13th. But we're kind of we're expecting that your submissions on the 30th are tape out ready. You've been through a tape out successfully, right? So there shouldn't be much or any work required for the final tape out submission, that stage.
So it's after April 30th, within a week.
Yep.
The first week of May.
Do all participants get some measure of recognition for successful submission on either both rounds or limit to winners?
So yeah, it's a good question. Here's the essence of the law, or not the word, is that our objective is to get visibility for the designs and enrich the open source designs. So if it's not a winner, but it's for one reason or the other, I think we're gonna find ways to do that.
Yep.
And maybe because the designs don't get fabricated or a part of the winning, it could be useful for something else. Make it invisible in a potential marketplace where someone can say, I would like to see that design fabricated. There are multiple ways we do that, but absolutely we want to make it visible. And if you meet the criteria that you're not on the top in the winner, then it is still an honorable mention that we would like to work on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a startup join the team.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Can we get a sample of what a successful submission will look like for both rounds? I don't have anything specific I can point to. We can think about that, but I don't know that I have anything specifically. Yeah. We'll come back to that. But if we think,
I think we should go.
Right. So can we use a proprietary IPs like SRAM? You can use, yes, you can absolutely use SRAM. If Yeah, I mean, that's a good question because the intent of this is to make a design, you're providing a design that's reproducible by someone else that they could submit. So that's the goal. And if we can enable that path, then I think it's good. If it's a challenge or some way to be able to leverage that design and reuse it because of some licensing, because of some IP that was incorporated in the design, and that will be a challenge to the submission. But definitely the top level integration of the design needs to be open source with an open with a appropriate license.
Yeah, so the answer is you can use the SRAM,
Yeah.
But in this case, the SRAM block itself is not open, but it's the top level is open.
But it's really accessible. So I mean, one thing is if you were to submit, if you use your own block and or you had a block that you could potentially make it available to everyone through a marketplace, that might be possible. We'd have to kind of consider that, right? But for SRAM, definitely yes, because that is accessible to everyone at this stage. Anyone, I mean, there's a cost to it, but there's a modest cost to it, but it's accessible and available to everyone. And I expect that most designs or many designs would need high density SRAM.
Yeah.
Does Caravel boot Linux?
So general answer, it's resource limited. There's one expert Linux person in the past that have done something like this with many trimmings to the operating system to make it work, and just so we can say it train Linux, but no, the general answer is no.
Generally no.
Now, by the way, actually, if it has happened in the past. The thing is, let's be practical about it. But in general, we in the thousands of designs that have been using Caravel, there's only one that I know of that adapted the Linux to fit into the chip. It was the other way around, and it was very low performance.
Question about office hours. So we will post office hours. They will probably start after the 25th submission. If you have questions or anything like that, please reach out to us either directly through the info or through the Discord server. But if you want to reach out to us at info@chipfoundry.com. It's chipfoundry.io. .com would actually work. .io is the correct domain. Are we hiring? We're not. Not at this point. Not at this point. All right. When are we communicating the BOM, or when we are communicating the BOM, should we consider the cost of tape out and commercial SRAM along with the PCB components? I think, yeah.
But as I said, the winners, the cost of the silicon is going to be, and the components is something that's going to be covered by. So you don't need to include the silicon, really, right, Jeff?
Yeah, not really. No, I mean the cost when we're talking about like the feasibility and costs, it's going to be more around the rest of the assembly.
Yeah,
side of the chip, outside the silicon. All right. How do we form teams? Any rules? Are we supposed to form a team with participants currently attending the webinar? It's all open.
It's all open. You can attending or not attending. You can go.
You're welcome to post on Discord there as well if you want to try to reach out.
So you could actually try to teaming and ask and show your intent for teaming, and then other people will show in the channel to say, I want to work with you. That also is another way.
Yep.
Is ReRAM covered?
It's a good question. I don't know if I have an answer.
So let me ask this. Let me try to answer. The general chip ignite flows, they have a ReRAM flow, correct?
Yeah. So we support ReRAM fabrication. right?
No.
But in terms of if you're asking about the ReRAM IPs,
No.
specifically from VM Labs, no, that's
Yeah.
not open.
It's not open. So in general, the actual technology support is there. Macros are not going to be included. If you design your own macro, happens to be, you're welcome. But the technology will be fabricated using with the ReRAM flow in a part of it.
Correct. Are we currently working on a DRAM controller? Oh, no, we are currently working on a DRAM controller design, especially for aiming memory subsystem energy reduction and near memory AI accelerators. So this is a research topic, can be implemented as part of this program.
You can, if it fits in the application,
Yeah,
and then absolutely. So as long as it's positioned, one of the valuable things about anything we say, like energy reduction and things like that, they need to be tangibly demonstrated at the product level, at the system level.
all right. Regarding example of a successful submission, if you share some templates, expected files essential for the submission for round 2 or any.
Yeah, so this is the second time, so I think it's worth actually posting that somewhere.
I mean, we can definitely share with you some of the other contests and submissions, and that's going to be silicon based, right, for the silicon portion of it. And then we'll do some posting around that, like the additional potentially additional deliverables outside of that you'd expect. But obviously, BOMs and design files for boards. If you have any mechanical is in there, then the STL files or whatever design files you have for building those, documentation, any documentation around that, firmware obviously, or application code software would be also elements I'd expect. If you have that as part of your product. Okay. Is there NVM memory IP that we can use? Now, currently the only thing that's available is through a partner, and it's ReRAM based. We don't currently have a non-volatile memory IP. You can, of course, in most of our examples, you see it for the board, they'll use off-chip flash for code storage or for non-volatile storage. Do we have access to a memory compiler for the SRAMs? Or do we have, no, we have there's a pre-built macros that you can use, and we can follow up with the list of those. But basically, Marwan, just remind me again, they scale to what's a 32K for the largest one, or
I think
eight times 4, right? Yeah. So I think the largest is 32K macro. Is that right?
I think it's 64.
8194. Oh, 64. Maybe. Okay. All right. Okay. So we can follow up and chase that down. There, you will find most of that hopefully in our marketplace, which I'll touch on right before the end of the call here, just on some updates on the platform.
Yeah, and just to visually see, this is actually available for use. These are the macros, right, Jeff?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm looking. Yes. Yeah. Correct.
And there's another one that's not here.
There's another one that we might have built that's
okay,
not.
so your advice is to look in the marketplace?
Well, yeah, and unfortunately I gotta make sure the marketplace has it. Yeah, there it is, a 64K at the bottom.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the one that Marwan was referring to.
Yeah, and again, in this case, the cost of that memory is going to be part of the winning.
You don't need to be concerned about the cost of that. No. Yeah. Okay. Can we use larger frame sizes than the 3 templates? We don't have. No, we don't. Currently, we only support. It has to fit in a standard Caravelle template. So we don't do multi. We don't have support right now that expands me outside the standard Caravelle. That has something that has been asked for, and we are continuing to evaluate that. So that could be coming up in the future, but not for this tape out. Any tips or resources you recommend referring to help to be in a better position for working on this. I don't know, Mohammed, if you have anything specific. I mean, we have the resources that we list at the end of the challenge are kind of our best shot at like things that, at least in terms of reference material. The other thing you could look at is other previous submissions or other open source chips that use Caravel. So you could do a Google search on that. Or yeah, you could do a Google search on that. There's also a few, we ran a contest last fall that was based on Microwatt, and you'll see some design submissions there you can take a look at. But I think for inspiration, I would probably go back and look at some of the eFabless contests and people that built projects and posted those via in their own repos, and so you can find those typically through Google searching. All right, any tips or resources recommend? Okay, that's that one. Is there a rubric? So the rubric yeah, go ahead.
So I think it's not actually just the PPA and the cost. It's the application also, the application fitness and what do you do, because it could be higher power, but it's doing something that is wall plugged in a very industrial environment. So think first about the application, and then whether an optimization for cost or PPA rather is something that's it's guidance, but the application is not optimized, but it has a different source of energy that's perpetual, like again, wall plug or something. So I think the answer is no to this question. The mainly, I don't want that to be the hard requirement in a way that is, but if everything is equal and one design is 10x lower power than the other, the lower power is going to win.
Yeah, the categories are kind of listed on the website in terms of the categories for the evaluation. But in terms of like a scale on each of those, we don't have anything like that defined. It's going to be relative to other projects that are submitted. Okay, any design chips that help inspire you from making competition? Okay, so another question around basically example, yeah, what's available. So I can we'll take that back too to see if we can provide anything after the webinar and post it and make it available for people to take a look at. But I don't have anything right offhand. Not hearing this probably, but I guess what you mean is the DOMs. Not sure what you are referring to exactly. I'm not sure what the last question was referring to about bombs or DOMs.
The bill of materials.
Yeah.
And the bill of materials is the sum of basically what are the components used on your system. Different as you build the board.
What do we mean by bombs? Yeah, bill of materials. That's what we mean. Yeah. Right. So particularly like if you have a board assembly, a PCBA, right? Then just having the list of the components for the assembly and the cost of those, what's the overall cost of the whole product bill, set of components. Is probably what we're referring to. Okay. After the 25th, when will we know? It's been, so what we've said is basically within a week after the 25th, when will we know? That'll also happen within a week. Within a week or less, we'll announce who was made it to the next round. Okay, good. Well, that's all the questions. I really appreciate everyone's participation. I'm going to hit a couple things just as a kind of final notes. We've been making a lot of updates on our end on the platform. If you're familiar with if you've taped out or done anything with us previously, you'll see some changes. One of them is that there's now a login and a registry. You can actually log into the platform And we have a portal for tracking your projects. So there's a login button on the main page, and once you get in, you'll see kind of if you've created projects or submitted any projects previously, you'll see a list of those projects that you can take. You'll see a list of those projects, and you can expand on that list to kind of get the specific details for your project. It also provides you kind of a process for submitting and a timeline for doing that, and kind of shows you kind of status of what your current project submission is. It also will provide you information regarding your tape out, the overall shuttle, kind of milestones and timing and kind of status. You'll also find options here to be able to, in terms of if you're submitting a regular ChipIgnite order, you can configure your fabrication options and kind of confirm your billing and shipping addresses through this process as well. So there's going to be more to come as we get going, but that's relatively new, and encourage you to check that out. You can register just by basically going into the main site and hitting the login register button, and that will you can use GitHub or Google or just a user password to register. Also, there's once you're logged in, you'll see a bunch of resources here in this link, in this documentation menu. Two of those in particular. Let me just refresh because I got a little. All right, so one of them is a submission process. So this talks a little bit about kind of the steps for submitting your design. So it's a good document, and we'll be continuing to probably update this as things change. But generally, you'll see the overall process for kind of starting a project and submitting it. Again, we primarily are using today a tool called the Chip Foundry CLI or the CF CLI. That's something that you would pip install locally. And after you pip install it, you can run a set of commands to basically set up and eventually submit your project. You can actually run most of the commands right from there, including hardening and pre-check and verification. And then there's commands then here to actually push your design files to us, and pull back the results and correct and iterate on your design as you work through the submission process. So that's invaluable there. And there's also a good reference for the CLI commands, which is in the next link down. So this is your kind of good reference for all the commands that are available through that CLI command tool. So I encourage you to check that out as well. All right, those are the main items. I get one person who has their hand raised. We're not really doing voice-based questions, but if you want to post it real quickly, or you can also, there we go. We're happy to try to answer it. Questions: can our solution be software like an SOC generator or an AI agent? So
it needs to be hardware that you can actually power up and use.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're kind of at the top of the time. If you still have a question or didn't get answered, please feel free to reach out to us. Someone said, can people still join us in round 2? You can add people to your team in round 2 for sure, right? Obviously, we're not going to take new submissions for new designs, but we'll definitely, you can bring in additional people in round 2 into your team.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Looking forward to working with you.
Yep.
All right. Take care.